Okay, let's look at number 12. Number 12 is a short answer question, and it says, briefly describe one characteristic of Hiram Bingham that contributed to his success in finding Machu Picchu. Use details from passage 1 to support your response. Type your answer in the space provided. When I briefly look back over, I see that um, he talks about himself finding the ruins of some of the Inca ancient civilizations. He's analyzing, he's brought guides, he has a military escort. Um, he's not the only one that has looked for this place, but he's very persistent in the fact that he finds something, and then a few days later he comes upon some more ruins 60 miles away. Um, and so he's having many discoveries. He's not just finding something and saying, "Okay, time to go home." And it says here that the following summer he again returns to some of the things he's found. And so, from briefly looking back over some of these paragraphs, the word that comes to mind to me is that he's very dedicated. And so, let's review the question one more time, and I'll show you how um, what you should be thinking as you put this response together. It says briefly describe one characteristic, and so I'm going to highlight that of Hiram Bingham that contributed to his success in finding Machu Picchu. So again, I think he's very determined in the fact that he found things, and then 60 miles away he found more things, and then the next summer he goes back and finds more things. He's very determined. And so they asked me to use details from the passage. So let's be careful with that. Details means more than one. And so I need to go back and find a couple things where I think it proves that he is determined. And so here's my big scary white box. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first make a plan like we've been practicing. And since it doesn't say multi-paragraph response, I know that it does not need to have an intro and a couple body paragraphs and a conclusion. It doesn't say anything about a multi-paragraph response. It just has a briefly describe a characteristic with some evidence. And so what I'm thinking in my head is ice. I need to have some kind of introduction where I kind of state my characteristic, and then I need to have evidence, a quote, and then I got to remember to pay for the quote. And in this case, since I'm using a source, I'll just put source in the parentheses. And then lastly, I need to explain the importance of why I pulled that quote and how it relates to my characteristic that I opened with in the introduction. Okay, so let's look what my response looks like, and I've color coded it for you so you can see where the red is. That's my introduction, and my blue is my quotes, and my green is the explanations. And so again, I'm going to prove that he's determined, but I need to have details, and so that's why you see two quotes, two explanations, and two lead-ins. So let me read this to you and see what you think. One characteristic that Hiram Bingham exhibits is determination. For instance, his finding of Machu Picchu was not an overnight quick discovery. Rather, he stayed the course and worked methodically in hopes of finding this place. According to the text, quote, for long weeks he had scoured the sweltering jungles. And it was from source one. And then I go on with my explanation here, and I say, which highlights the notion that Bingham worked exhaustively and for an extensive period in his quest to discover this ancient civilization. Additionally, Bingham's quest to better understand this ancient Inca civilization inspired him to go back to Machu Picchu to continue his work. And then I'm going to lead into my second quote. As the article states, quote, the following summer, Bingham returned to Machu Picchu, careful digging around its ruins. And again, that was from source one. My explanation, since there were still many unanswered questions, his determination prompted him to continue looking for answers to the many questions that existed about this ancient civilization. So, again, I've covered everything. I've um, stated my one characteristic, and then I have a lead in, and then I have a quote that supports it, and then I explain it. Then it asks not for a new characteristic, but it asks for an additional explanation of why I think he's determined. And so my second explanation, my lead in is in red. I have a second quote, and then I'm going to explain my quote. So right now, what I would like you to do is go back to your short answer. Did you remember to ice? Label your parts. Did you find one characteristic? Did you have two details? Did you find two quotes to explain those details? And did you then explain how both quotes go back and support your word? So take a few minutes here. Again, pause. Go back and see if you have all of the parts that were required for this question.